anywhere from 12 to 15 to 1700 times.
Okay.
And possibly more, because I put medium in, psychic medium, in the title, so it might actually get watched more.
Probably.
Been watched probably, oh look, anywhere from, I'm talking about it. Okay, so they can already see
times.
us. We're,
Okay.
And possibly more, because, okay. And mediumship is a really popular topic, especially with people like me that are coming out of religion, where it's been like, oh no, don't do that, for so long. And now we're opening up and we're like, okay, yeah, what's wrong with that? You know,
Right.
there's nothing really wrong with that. And a lot of the people here are actually, hi, Rebecca and Rain. Hi, how are you doing? It's so good to see y'all. So yeah, we'll get, we're gonna give a little bit of time for everybody to get in the room. Y'all can say hi to Sarah if y'all want to. Do you have your YouTube going also, Sarah?
I can't actually, pardon, what did you say?
I was saying, do you have your YouTube on also?
No, I do not.
Okay, that's okay. You don't have to.
Okay.
I'll be in the chat doing the Rain says, yes, the medium did grab my attention. LOL. It's so interesting. I've always been so intrigued by your work, by their work, by medium's work.
Right.
Hi, Elizabeth. It's good to see you. Rebecca says, hey, Sarah.
Hey, Rebecca. Thanks for coming onto the call.
Yes. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Sarah and let her start talking to y'all a little bit about who she is, and where she comes from. For those of you who have followed my channel and you've heard me tell the story about my awakening, and it basically happened whenever I realized that somebody that had passed away years and years and years before, that the problem in our relationship was actually me. And I was having a really, really hard time letting go of it. And I finally decided I had to reach out to a medium. This is my medium. And I'm going to say right now, even savior to some extent, because when I walked in there, I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. Right. And because Sarah was able to connect me with that loved one that had passed on, I was able to release a lot of guilt and make amends in a way that I would have never been able to otherwise. So I walked out with this weight gone. It didn't stop the grieving process, but it made a huge difference in the way I felt. So Sarah, I'm gonna stop talking and let you talk about you, what you do, how you got into it, and all that good stuff. And what is your upbringing like? Were you always?
Okay, awesome. All right, thanks, Cheryl. So
okay, go ahead.
I probably discovered that I had this ability when I was around about 10 years old. And I mean, I've always been scared of the dark. I've always made sure that my mom or my dad closed the cupboard doors in my bedroom so that the person in the bedroom wouldn't come out while I was sleeping. I always felt spirit in the house. My mom even said to me from a very young age, she spoke about all the different people I had around me that she called my imaginary friends, but they weren't imaginary friends. And every single one of them had a different diet requirement, and she had to cook for them. And she played along so beautifully, which is really wonderful. I don't remember any of that, but I do remember the stories that she shared. Now, I grew up in I started off as a Jehovah's Witness, and from that we went into the Anglican Church, which I think is called the Episcopal faith here.
Okay.
And then when my parents got divorced, my stepfather was an atheist. Wow. And so I went from going from that environment into another environment where I had one family member as very Christian and another family member as being an atheist. And so we had this mix in the family. But fortunately for me, my mom never really interfered, or my stepfather never really interfered with me. And round about, I would say at about age 10, we used to have an annual book that used to come out once a year at Christmas time. And I remember reading this book, and in this book was a story of this woman who had this moon shape over here on her forehead. And it set me, it was like the trigger that actually just woke me up. It was something that I wanted to explore more. I felt so at home with this story. I read the story over and over and over again because I could relate to it, even at age 10. And so it's just progressively come with me. And I didn't always do this. I mean, I've worked in the corporate world for over 20 years of my life for my sins. And yeah, and eventually I decided the corporate world is not for me anymore, and that I wanted to do more and more and more of this. And so I broke away and decided to do this on a full-time basis, and I don't regret doing it. You know, it's a complete learning experience. I think as a medium or as a psychic or as an intuitive, we're constantly learning. It's not something where you can say, all right, I'm done. Thank you very much. That's it. That's all I know. We're constantly learning.
Right.
So yeah. And now, of course, I live in Lake Charles. You can tell by my accent that I'm not from the US. You know, I was born in the United Kingdom, and I was raised in South Africa. And now I live in the United States, and I've been here for 8 years this year.
Wow, that is awesome. Okay, so you'll know, I'm just going to say hi to some people who've come into the room, but a lot of the subscribers and the people who watch this channel actually come from the UK and South Africa. I have clients in South Africa, as a matter of fact, and the UK. But so Rebecca says, hey, Sarah, and Renee or Rena says, happy to join and looking forward to the insights that you're going to bring. Dee says, hello, Sarah. Hi, Maria. Hi, Raven. Some people are walking in saying hi. Hi, Raymond and Rebecca. Okay, so one of the questions that I get asked, because you know this is a tarot channel, and
Right.
so one of the questions I get asked is whenever I am reading tarot and I'm kind of looking off to the side, you know, what's going on? How's spirit communicating with me? And I've told them that, but how does spirit communicate with you?
Right. So there is a difference between what I refer to as a psychic reading, like a tarot reading, and then also a mediumship reading. There is a difference. And the difference is that when you are reading someone psychically, you're actually reading their energy.
Right.
Yet when we are reading mediumistically, we are off. I like to say we're off with the fairies. We're off at an angle. We're not focusing on the person that's sitting in front of us. In fact, we're actually focusing in the distance as we're connecting to the other world. The interesting thing about, can I give you an example of how I explain that? The differences? Okay, great. Okay. So, you know, to me, it's like if somebody comes to you for a mediumship reading and they sit in front of you, and inside their head, they're probably sitting there going, oh, I wish that grandmother would come through. And in her head, she's saying, and I wish they would talk about the wedding dress, as an example. And so the medium would sit here and say, oh, okay, I have your grandmother that's come through and she wants to talk about the wedding dress. Okay. And so the person who's sitting in front of them would then say, oh, that's awesome, awesome, awesome. You know, that's really who I want. And then in her mind, she's saying, I hope she tells me that she really liked the dress. And then the medium would say, she wants to tell you that she really likes the dress. That is psychic.
That's psychic.
So she's picking everything up that person is thinking or feeling in her field. Mediumship would then be connecting to the person, saying, okay, great, I don't know who's coming forward right now, I don't have a clue. And then all of a sudden the spirit world will start to draw near, and it could start off saying, right, I have an uncle here in the spirit world who wants to speak to you. Now the client is going, you know, yeah, I like the uncle, but I really want to speak to my grandmother, right?
Right.
And then we would do a little bit of conversation with the uncle, and then the uncle will step back and we'll say, we have a grandmother stepping forward. Do you know a grandmother? And she'd go, yes, I know a grandmother. Great. Then the grandmother might say, let's talk about the wedding dress. And we'll say, okay, she wants to talk about the wedding dress. And so now the client again is very great and happy about that. And then she'll say, your grandmother wants to say that you did look lovely in that wedding dress, but she preferred the other one that you tried on. And so what we're doing here is we're having a conversation with the spirit world, and we're not necessarily reading the person that's sitting in front of us. That's why you'll also notice that when mediums when they work, they turn away from the client so that they're not actually focusing on that auric field of the client. And they don't look at the client because they also don't want to see, oh, I'm very happy to see that the gestures in your face, yes, I'm getting it right, and then I'm not getting it right. It's actually not about the client at all.
Right.
It's actually about what we're talking about over here with the medium, with the people coming through. And so you'll notice, for example, with Tony Stockwell, I'll use him. He doesn't look at the client, and he's constantly looking away, and he's talking the whole time away because he's actually communicating to the spirit world. He's not communicating to the person in front of them. And every now and then he'll turn around and he'll go, do you understand that?
Right.
Yeah, and that is the difference between a medium and a psychic. And there are two schools of thoughts here. The one is that psychics, mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums.
Yes.
All right. So there is a difference. However, there is another school of thought that says they can still tap into the other side, but the link is very short. So they'll be able to do a wonderful psychic reading, and then grandmother might pop in, and she might turn around, or he might turn around and say, I see grandmother here. She just wants to know that you're here, because that link is not strong enough. Right. So, I believe that everybody, through practice and through, sitting in the power and really spending time with the spirit world, that anybody can really talk to the spirit world. Right. But there are two schools of thoughts here around. You're either a psychic, but if you're a medium, you have to be psychic as well. So, I'm going to put it out there, and you're going to hear me saying this a lot, because I believe that people need to think for themselves and go in the route that they choose is correct for them. And so I'm giving you these two different schools of thought.
Right. Well, and I think it's important too, because there are, unfortunately, just like every other field, I think there's a lot of mediums out there that aren't necessarily mediums, or psychics instead, but sell themselves as mediums, and people don't actually get the resolution like that I got, the resolve that I got with that situation, because they can't. Because right. all that person can do is talk about what's in this field right here.
Right. And I also think you've also got to, if you want to become a medium, and if there is anybody on this call tonight who are actually thinking about becoming a medium, you've got to ask yourself, why are you doing it? Right. Because if you're doing it because you want a ton of clients, or you want to be famous, or you want to make money, it's the wrong reason. You need to be able to do it so that you can actually help the other person, and also help the soul on the other side. Because you must remember, we're working, it's like a triad here, where we are healing the person that's sitting in front of us, that's come for a reading, like you came to me for a reading. But then we're also looking at, there could be a soul that's crossed over that has unfinished business. Recently I sat with a man who was actively dying. And the one thing that I kept hearing over and over again is that he had an issue with his brothers, and that he was actively dying. So there was no ways that he could get hold of his brothers. There was no ways that he could say he was sorry to his brothers. Right. But it sits with him. And now he's on his way out, and he's passing over. And now he has to call somebody like a medium in to say, well, I need to now talk to my brothers to say that I'm sorry. And the brothers on the other, the brothers here probably also need that healing as much as they do on the other side. Right.
So you bring up a good thought process. And again, like I said, a lot of people on this channel do have a very fundamental traditional background with religion or whatever. And you said, so he brings this with him to the other side. So whenever we get to the other side, there's still stuff for us to work out, right?
Oh, absolutely. My belief is that, and from doing this work for a while, is our souls are constantly growing. And so, our soul will come here and will learn some wonderful things. I can share this story with you to help explain that. When my father and I didn't have the best relationship at all, in fact, I didn't have a very good relationship with him. I never really knew him. And I was very angry at that. Yet when he crossed over to the other side, he came through to me after I gave him permission to, because I didn't want him anywhere near me for a while. But he eventually came through to me, and the words he said to me, which healed me completely, was, "We played our parts well." And it meant a lot to me, because what it said to me was that we came here to learn lessons. Our soul has come here to learn lessons, and that we ask certain people in our soul group to actually come in and help us with those lessons. And we do it for one another. And then when we go back, we have this life review, we go through what it is that we've actually studied and learned here. And then we spend some time in the spirit world. And then it is our choice whether we decide to come back and learn more or stay there. It's our choice. We have free will. So we have, we are free to do whatever we choose. We're not free of the consequence of that choice, of course, but we are free to do whatever we choose. And so if we want to stay in the spirit world, we can. But if we want to grow our soul even further, we can return.
Right. Okay, so I have a couple of questions here. Rebecca, this is Sarah, and she is a psychic medium. All mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. I said it right, Sarah?
Yeah, all mediums are psychic, not all psychics are mediums, correct.
Right. Okay, so let's see, somebody asked, how do I become a medium? And we're going to address that at the end, because Sarah actually does mediumship mentoring and classes too, to teach mediumship.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, and I think she's got a course coming up. So we'll talk about that a little bit at the end. And Angela, or a regular girl, wants to know, how do we know if somebody's at peace on the other side?
Because they tell us.
Because they tell us.
Now, remember, when we are connecting with somebody in the spirit world, I haven't found one person that has connected with me in the spirit world that has not found peace. If you listen to the near-death experiences that people have, and you do a lot of research on that. In fact, I had a person in my office the other day who was talking about his near-death experience. And he was saying it is one of the most incredible experiences he has ever felt. He didn't want to come back. He said, because when you leave the body, as traumatic as the event is, taking up to leaving the body, after that event, all you feel is incredible love. He says you feel the angelic realm, you feel God's presence, you feel that love, and you see that light. And he was saying to me, as he was going towards this light, he didn't care about anything on earth anymore. He wasn't concerned about the fact that his body was laying on a table and that they were trying to revive him. All he felt and all he wanted to continue to feel was this beautiful feeling that he was surrounded with. And he said it's a difficult feeling to explain. He said, but it's like complete unconditional love. Right. And you feel incredibly peaceful. And everybody who's gone through a near-death experience shares similar stories to that. And when people are coming in for a reading and the spirit world comes to the other side, they never talk about the drama and the trauma that they've gone through. And they don't talk about that on the other side. They want you to remember them in their happy ways and the way that life was in the joyous of times. You know, they typically come through to apologize if they have messed up in some way or another. But I haven't had one person saying that I'm still traumatized and I don't know where I am and, you know, I'm not at peace. And this comes now in my head here. I'm seeing, what about suicide? And this is something that comes up quite a lot, right? Okay, because from a religious point of view, it's a big no-no in terms of suicide. But what I have found, that people that have crossed over from suicide, there is no differentiation between those people that are at peace and the people that haven't committed suicide. In fact, they all are extremely, feel extremely loved, well taken care of, and at peace. So what I have discovered through doing this work is there's no judgment. There's no judgment in whether you take your own life or don't take your own life. You know, I think that is a human trait. And I think that is something that is fear-based or control-based. But based on my experience from talking to the other side, there is no difference.
Right.
It's just I've decided to check out early. What I have found, though, that they will probably have to do a little bit more of a life review, and they may need to go back and repeat some lessons that they were supposed to come and learn in the first place, and they decided, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. And so, you know, they may need to do that. But from a judgment point of view, I have not experienced that at all.
Right. So whenever still, and maybe, you know, maybe you've had a conversation with the spirit from the other side or not about this. If they choose to come back, isn't it still their choice?
Yes.
Or they're not forced to come back and learn the lesson again?
Nobody is forced to come back.
Ever. Yeah.
It's their choice.
That's kind of what I have felt about it. But there are a few different schools of thought about that too, actually. So very interesting. Okay, so L. Rowe wants to know, do our pets, our beloved pets, also experience the same peace and love when they cross over?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, it's so interesting. Pets they're amazing here, and they're even more amazing on the other side. And so your pets stay with you, and often enough, they will come through. So, you know, in a mediumship reading, in fact, I had a mediumship reading about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and all this person wanted to talk about was their pets. And she was so excited that she could actually have a conversation with an animal she had just put down. And she'd felt guilty about this, and she wanted some kind of peace, just like you wanted peace. You know, she also wanted peace, and she found that because this was the first thing that came through, was this animal, very, very loving, very connected, could share some beautiful memories, thanked her for the things that she had done. You know, explained the different favorite toys of this dog, and thanking her. I think she buried him with a ball, and, you know, thanking her for that. So they're very much at peace on the other side as well. Absolutely. You know, and they come through bouncing and loving and licking faces. That's amazing.
Okay. So, so this is kind of where I thought she was going to regular girl. Thank you for answering. I really love this, and I'm all about learning. Is it possible for a loved one who's still living, that is grieving, can your grief prevent somebody from going into the light or crossing over? Are there trapped souls here?
Right. So I would look at it this way. I spend time with people before they actually cross over to the other side. It's something I like to do as a volunteer. And one of the things that we have found is that when they haven't said goodbye to somebody, they will hold on, but only hold on for a certain point, because then, you know, remember, it's about letting go of the body. When the body can no longer hold on to the soul, it's going to have to let it go.
Right.
But once that person has actually crossed over, there is an opportunity for them, because they are now spirit, right, for them to hang around their loved ones. And most times they actually hang around the room and they see what's going on. They go to their own funeral. I mean, I remember my aunt, when she passed away, was flicking the ear of the organ player as she was playing at her own funeral. You know, I mean,
you could see her.
I could see her. So I was the only one who was smiling in the church, and everybody else was crying, and I'm looking at her going, oh my God, Barbara, just calm down, you know. So they do hang around, and they make sure that your loved ones are actually, that they're okay. Sometimes they want certain specific things to be cleared, and then they will hang around for that. But then they are free to go. But you do get souls that, again, there's 2 schools of thought here, where they go to the light and come back, or you get a soul that has crossed over very suddenly and they're not quite sure what's going on. And so they will then attach themselves to someone that is like them. In other words, if they were a fun loving person who loved to hang out at the beach, they may find somebody with that energy and hang out with them for a while. Or they may find that they're hanging around their loved ones for a while until their guide or to a medium comes and says, okay, come to the light, see the light, come to the light. So there are mediums out there that specifically work with people who help people cross over who are trapped.
Right.
but I have had it once or twice. I had a gentleman on my staircase not so long ago who popped in, and he sat here and he said, I need my daughter to know that I am okay. Can you please let her know? And then as soon as I said, yes, I will let her know, he says, your name is Cynthia. And so I found her and gave her the message, and then he was free to go and he left, so sometimes they do that as well.
Right. Wow. Because they still care about us. Right.
Absolutely. Love never dies.
Love never dies. I love that. Okay. So I'm wondering about someone who was murdered. Do they end up staying earthbound? I think that's kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah. You must remember, people who are murdered are, I've had a couple of people who have been murdered that have come through, and they have made it to the other side. They are, there is something called a healing chamber on the other side, where they are placed in that chamber and, they are healed. In fact, I think we all go through it, but some of us need it a little bit more. It's
right.
like, I need an hour's massage compared to just 20 minutes type thing.
Right.
And so they do go in that healing chamber, but they all end up embracing that beautiful love and light.
Right.
Sometimes they might hang around until the case is solved.
Right.
Or they might be around the family that is traumatized by the event. But it's not that they're trapped. They just want to make sure that everything is okay.
Right. Okay. That's very comforting. I mean, for us that are still here. Okay. So Dee wants to know, do you ever have souls that hang around you after you do a session?
No. I have very strict boundaries.
Okay. So talk about that. Yeah.
Yes. So, when we first start off in mediumship, we want spirit to hang out with us all the time. It's like, this is fun. This is awesome. I want spirit to hang out with me. If I say that I'm putting boundaries in place, maybe they won't come back. And so we have all these little nuances and all these little fears that it's like, I don't want to say no. Right. But I have very strict boundaries. I have time when I'm doing readings, and I have time when I'm not doing readings, because we are also people that need to live our lives. We've got groceries and bills to pay. We've got kids to take to school. I can't have spirit world hanging around with me. And they know that. So I set boundaries in place. I actually have a spirit room in the spirit world, and I have a sign up there that is open or closed for business.
Wow.
And they know that when it's open, they can come forward, and when it's closed, they've got to stay away. And they do. The wonderful thing about the spirit world is they're very respectful in that way. And if you say no or go away, they will go away. Not unlike humans who will try and push you to the limits. They don't do that in the spirit world. Yeah. So yeah, I don't have spirit following me around. No.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's see. My daughter has been seeing orbs in person. Is this possible? So, okay, so somebody wants to know, do we see orbs in real life outside of pictures? Normally we just see them in pictures.
Yes, that's awesome. I've also heard of people who see numbers with colors, that can see auras of trees, that see people's auras without actually being able to physically focus on it and see it in the mind's eye. So seeing orbs, if your daughter is seeing orbs, that's fabulous. How old is your daughter, if I may ask?
Okay, so let me go back and see. Okay, Raven, how old is your daughter? Sarah wants to know. Let's see, I'm looking for questions. So you guys, if you have questions, go ahead and put questions, like 2 or 3 of them, question marks, so that I don't miss your question. Something you can turn on and off. Are you always receiving messages? Okay, no, she already said no. We already answered that one. Do negative souls attach to vulnerable humans and cause difficulty and emotional pain?
Right. So it all depends. Again, it's a matter of perspective. So what is a negative soul? A negative soul to one person might not be a negative soul to another. I do believe that when we go through trauma, there is a possibility that we can have a negative, and I'm going to put that in inverted commas, again, attachment, but there are also loved ones that are picking up on the same energy. So I have never experienced, since the age of 10, when I started to see the spirit world, I have never experienced anything evil or negative. So I think it's also got to do.
I'm so glad you said that.
And I think it's got to do with what we focus on, Cheryl. So if we're focusing on the negative aspects of what's out there. I mean, there is evil out there, right? But if we don't focus on it and we envelop ourselves in God's light and we are protecting ourselves, then it is, you know, that stuff cannot come anywhere near you. I like to talk about it as a vibration. If your vibration is pretty high, then what attracts your people to that vibration is the same level of vibration. So if you're operating out of vibration of love and joy and peace, and that's what you're going to attract. If you're doing it out of anger and greed and lust and sadness or depression or hate, you know, that's the vibration that you're working on. And so there is a potential that you will find like-minded souls like that would like to hang out with you for a while.
Because of the law of attraction.
Correct. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it will influence you in a negative way. It could. But, you know, it's also something that you can clear very quickly with boundaries. So I want you guys to remember that you are in control.
Yeah.
And that you do not need to be a victim of anything. And so if you have something that you believe is influencing you in some way, you have the power to say, that's enough. And that's why boundaries are very important, because you don't have to accept anything like that, right? So I would suggest that to answer that question, I would say that it depends on the vibration that you're operating at. But I don't believe that they can physically do harm.
Okay. Yeah.
Unless you allow them, right? Because we have free will and it's a choice.
Right. And we've talked about that in my group, and some of the people here are saying, oh, this is the first time I've ever been on your channel.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome to Spirit Mail. But in our community, we have talked about exactly that, about who has the authority to come in. And I say all the time, I don't experience anything negative. I never have. And I remember you saying that in our class one time, that however long you've been doing this, that you've never, ever had a negative experience.
Never. But, you know, I have very strong boundaries, and I make sure that my vibration is high. And when I'm sick, or when I feel like I wake up in the morning and I feel like I'm not in a great mood, I don't see clients. I don't connect to the spirit world. And I guys, never, ever, 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 ever play with a Ouija board. Just don't do it.
Okay.
It's one of those things that it's wonderful. It's a great tool to connect to the spirit world on the other side, but unfortunately you don't know who you're getting. Okay. And so you have to make sure that you're always working with your guides if you want to do mediumship, and that you're working with your protector guide, and that you've got your boundaries in place. These are very important aspects to mediumship, that taking a Ouija board, it might seem like a game, but you're opening a door and you don't know what's coming through. Right.
Okay, guys, y'all hear that? Never, ever, ever, ever. How many times did you say that?
Ever, 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 ever.
Just don't play with the Ouija board. Okay, so I want to go back up. I'm just going to go back up for a bit, because Joel was saying earlier, one of the guys in our group, he was saying that he's had a near-death experience.
Awesome.
And we were talking about, once you pass, whether it be by regular death or suicide, that nobody makes you come back. But now in this near-death experience, he said he didn't want to come back. I think your guy said the same thing, but he said they made him. And right
Correct,
here,
because it wasn't
where will find you. Huh?
Correct. So it wasn't his turn. In other words, it wasn't his time to die. So because it wasn't his time to die, they will say, nope, you're not ready. But once they've crossed over,
there's a difference.
What we're talking about is reincarnating. So if you've died and you've severed that cord and you've gone home, right? And now you've decided, okay, I want to come back down to earth again and learn something else. That's your choice. But from a near-death experience point of view, if you've decided that you have a life that you want to play out, and you want to play out in a certain way, then there is an opportunity there for you to come back. Your guides will probably encourage you to say, no, it's not time, you know, or this was something that you planned, but it's not time. It's part of your experience, it's part of your change. Because a lot of people who have gone through near-death experiences come back and they've changed. It's like these people, they're no longer afraid of death, for example, you know, so or they understand that there's more to life than what we just see here in the physical world. And so it changes them, and that may be part of the lesson that they've come to learn. And so their guide would then say to them, it's not time, this is a lesson for you, or this is something that you needed in order to teach and help other people, for example.
Yes.
I hope I explained that better. If you can just go back to him and ask him if that's
Joel, did that make sense to you? That's what we want to know. Okay, so because we're on a 20-second delay, I'm going to go ahead with some other questions, and we'll get to Joel in a little bit. How do you just focus on those making contact from the other side for your readings? Don't others try to come through too?
Sometimes they do. Yeah. You know, I've had readings where I've got 5 or 6 people that are lined up for the day, and so I will have Aunt Janice coming through for somebody who should actually be waiting for the person who's coming in next, but they're already there and they want to push in. And so, yeah, it does happen. And that's why when we connect to the other side and we say, all right, I have Auntie Janice here, and they say, I don't know who Auntie Janice is. It's like, okay, thank you very much, Janice, please step back, next person through. Okay, right. So of course it does happen, absolutely. But 9 times out of 10, it's like they're trying to bully their way in, and it depends on the personality of the person, because the personality doesn't change. Just because we don't have a body anymore doesn't mean we've changed, you know. So the same personalities will come through. So if they were forceful in real life, they will be forceful in the spirit world, and they will nudge their way forward.
Right. I remember whenever I went to see you so that I could make contact with my loved one, the very first thing he said, I don't know if you remember this, is he said, I cannot believe I'm talking to you like this, because he was agnostic. He just thought when you died, that was it. There was nothing left. And that was the first thing he said, I cannot believe I'm talking to you like this. And it made me laugh. And I knew immediately that was definitely him, because only he would say that. Right. It was really cool. Okay, so Raymond wants to know, he has videos of solid white orbs. Can you explain that? Why would he have videos and that's all he sees is these orbs?
So sometimes they're dust. Sometimes it's dust, but sometimes it's spirit. Sometimes it's guides. Have you ever had an aura photograph taken? You know, when you have an aura photograph taken, like when I have mine taken, I have these solid white orbs sitting on either side of me, and those are my guides.
Wow.
So this could be your guides that are coming through. It could just be dust particles in the room. We've got to be very careful that everything that we see on video or we see on camera is not necessarily the spirit world. It could just be dust.
Right.
You know, so these solid white orbs, it's probably the spirit world. If it's solid, it's probably spirit. You know, is it floating? Is it stagnant? What is it doing?
Right. It just depends.
And you can, a lot of times we've noticed as well, if you've watched videos with people that meditate, and then as I watched a video not so long ago where they were doing this massive group meditation, and during this meditation they were all meditating, getting into a wonderful state, and all these orbs just started to appear. It's like the spirit world comes closer.
Oh, wow.
And it's because we can raise our vibration when we're meditating, and they can lower theirs slightly because their vibration is higher than theirs when they cross. And here are all these beautiful orbs. It was amazing to see. And they were white, but you do get different colored ones.
Yeah.
I don't quite know the meaning of the different colored ones, I'll admit that. But I know that you don't just get white orbs. But yeah, it could be your guide.
That is awesome. Okay, so earlier we had the mom who said her daughter sees orbs, and you were like, oh my God, that's fat. She's 8.
Oh, awesome. That's even better. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. Awesome. So that's something to be encouraged. I've noticed that most children that are starting to come through now are open. They are already open. It's not like me, who's a 50-year-old woman who had to like claw her way open.
I mean,
Children are naturally open these days, and it's beautiful. I've even seen some children that can remember their past lives.
I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the fact that she's 8 years old, that's wonderful. It's beautiful. I think it's something to be encouraged and to be nurtured, because they come into the planet with a much higher vibration, and so they're already healing this beautiful world. And the fact that she can actually see these beautiful orbs is just amazing. I love it.
So
awesome.
as a mom, I would ask, and you're a mom too, but as a mom, I would ask, should Raven, is there a way for her to encourage her daughter on her own, or should she find a medium to allow her daughter to like mentor with, or just let her be and let her experience it?
I would encourage the conversation. So, encourage her to talk about what it is that she sees, what it is that she feels, because these children are also sensitive. So they may feel, they may be more emotional. They may be very empathic. So they're picking up things all the time. They've got these feelers out there in the world, and sometimes they don't realize that those feelings are for other people and not their own. And so it's important to have that conversation. I've worked with a few children before who has actually seen spirit world, who's actually seen people at the bottom of their beds. But the more you talk about it, the less they become afraid of it, and they become, quite embracive around the fact that, oh, I have this gift. It's like a superpower, And to me, it shouldn't be something that necessarily stands out, but it should be something, oh yeah, that's a natural part, and let's have a conversation around that. It's exciting. That's wonderful,
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, from a very young age, around our age group, we were shut down very quickly.
Yes.
It's specifically around things that people either don't understand or that people are afraid of. And so if you don't understand something, you either claim it to be evil or wrong. And so we create these boundaries around people, and we block our intuition. Now, everybody is intuitive, but I think a lot of us actually turn that off from a very young age, because they don't want to be judged, or they don't want to be ridiculed or bullied, or, they don't want to be pushed to one side to say that what you're doing is wrong. And so we need to be able to start to encourage that now, so that it becomes a natural part of everybody's lives. We're all intuitive. In fact, I love to say to people that if you don't trust your intuition, it's like walking through life blind. Your intuition is your compass, and the more and the stronger you can connect to your intuition, the better you can make decisions. It doesn't have to be from a psychic point of view. You're just making better decisions. You're getting yourself out of situations that you might have put yourself in because you're not listening to your intuition. Now I'm hearing, but what's the difference between intuition and, for example, the voice inside your head, right?
And that's a very common question. So I'm glad they're making you address it. They're having you address it.
So one of the things that you can do to discern between the two, your intuition speaks to you very, very quickly. So it is like lightning speed.
Okay.
The voice inside your head loves to debate. So it loves to talk. It loves to look at the pros and cons. It likes to take you away, put you into a sense of, oh, I wouldn't do that, because it likes to keep you into your comfort zone. But your intuition is lightning speed. You'll see, feel, sense things immediately. That is your intuition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Whenever I'm looking this way, Sarah, I just want you to know I'm not being rude. I'm just trying to make sure I get to everybody's questions. Because we're about 10 minutes to the top of the hour. So in about 5 more minutes, we're going to let Sarah give you her contact information. And she's going to talk to us about a class that she has coming up for mediumship.
Yes.
But this, Joel said, excellent advice. I died literally. You literally died, but you're back. So you didn't necessarily reincarnate. You just died and then came back because it wasn't your time.
Because the cord was still there.
Cord was still there.
If the cord was severed, he wouldn't have been able to come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have somebody else who has a question. Captain Marcy, are twins? This is about twins, not twin flames.
Okay.
Twin, brother, sister, 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 that kind of twin. Are they also twins on the other side? And do they always come back lifetime after lifetime together?
That's an interesting question. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to find out.
We'll have to find out. I actually don't know that answer to that question.
Okay.
From an intuitive point of view, I would say that it depends on what it is that they want to learn. So if one wants to learn what it's like to be Chinese and the other person wants to know what it's like to be Indian, they're not going to be able to do that, right? So I think it depends on the soul's lesson, but I do believe that they will always be in the same soul group and the same soul family when they return on the other side. But whether they decide to come back as twins again, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. Actually, the more I'm talking through it, I'm going to say probably not, because we also play different roles. Like, for example, they could be twins this time, and next time one could be the mother of the daughter, or one could be a man and the other one could be an uncle. It depends on the roles that they've come to play and what they've agreed on up front. So, the more I talk through this, the more I would say probably not.
Probably not. Okay. Let's see. Do you feel temperature change when a soul comes in the room?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good
So
question.
what happens with me sometimes is it will get colder sometimes, and my heart will start to palpitate. And then I know, okay, spirit's in the room. That is my sign. So when you're doing mediumship, you're working with your instrument all the time. So you are gathering information from your instrument all the time, your instrument being your body. So the fact that the temperature drops could be a sign. Sometimes it gets very hot though. Okay. So I think it depends on the soul that's coming through as well. I know that when I'm doing healing work, it also happens. Sometimes I'm freezing cold, sometimes I'm boiling hot. So, it depends, but the heart palpitations is the same.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. And we're never going to get to all these questions, but we're going to keep talking for just a little bit longer, and then we're going to let you give contact information. Let me ask you this question. Would you agree to come back and visit with us again?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So how important is it to clear your energy and space when working with spirit?
I think it's important. It's interesting. My husband says to me sometimes we're in the house. Now, I don't work from home anymore, but when I used to work from home, he used to say to me, you have spooks in the house. You need to clean them out. Okay? So, of course, then I would go and I'd smudge the place. But I think it's important. I like to also, between each client, I like to wash my hands as a symbol to say that I am now cutting from you. I'm now done. People smudge their homes. I hate the smell of smudge stick. I can't stand the smell of it. There is also beautiful sprays. If we have any South African people on the call, Divine Space makes some amazing sprays in South Africa. She's based in Johannesburg. Angelic sprays. Those are wonderful to clear out rooms. You can light a candle. You can say a prayer. You can do something called flushing on yourself, where you're actually flushing. You can cord cut. You can put yourself in a balloon. There's various different ways that you can do it. But I would suggest that, yes, it is important to clear, and you can tell because the energy starts to get a little bit heavy, then you know that, okay, it needs to be cleared out.
Yes.
But I also ask people to take their loved ones with them when they leave.
Oh,
because I don't want to hang out with them. They need to go with them.
Right. I love that. How do we know spirits are around? Okay, so here's a question they're asking, and I really like that they're asking this question because a lot of people ask this question all the time. What does it mean when I see 111 or when I see 222? So they're asking, or any series of numbers like that on a regular basis. So Pat is asking, how do we know when spirits are around? Is it when we see those numbers they're around?
Okay, so our loved ones talk to us through symbols. Because they don't have a body anymore, they talk to us through symbols, they talk to us through objects. So, for example, you may see numbers, you may see pennies, you may have a song playing on the radio that was their favorite song, you may see cardinals, butterflies, you may think of them in that moment. You know, you might think of that person and they're around, that spirit saying, I'm here. They may move. Pardon?
Smell their cologne.
Yes, you may smell their cologne, or if they smoke, you may smell cigarette smoke around, but there's no one smoking. So there are different ways that they will get your attention. They will also come to you in dreams. So if you have a very busy mind or a very active mind, and they can't connect to you because you're always in your head, then they will come to you in your dreams. And those dreams are very real. I'd like to discern, though, between them. And I'd like to say the following to you. When you have a visitation from a loved one in a dream, it's always positive. It's always positive. When you have a dream that is a nightmare, for example, I had a client who kept having a recurring dream around her husband who had passed, and he kept divorcing her in her dream. And she was panicking. What does this mean? What does this mean? It means that you have unresolved grief to deal with. It is in your mind. You're busy filing things still out of your mind. When it's a positive experience, it's a pure visitation. And so I want people to discern between that as well.
Right. That's very good information because it's a very big question a lot of times too. Okay, so should we challenge spirits by asking them if they have the highest good of all there is? Bet I'm not sure I understand that. Do you understand that?
Okay, so if you have proper boundaries in place, and if you say to your guides that you only want people that are loved ones from the person that you're reading, and that you do not want, you're setting boundaries with your guides all the time. I don't want this type of person. I don't want that type of person to come into the space. If you have set your boundaries, you don't need to do that because you're working with your guides. You're not working on your own. It's not you connecting to the spirit world. It's you connecting with your guides through to the spirit world, if that makes sense. So to answer that question, I would say, sure, you could say your intention from the beginning is that only souls that are coming through with love and light may actually enter this space at this time. That's it. You don't need to do anything else. You don't need to challenge them. It's a boundary you're setting in place. Done.
And you have the authority.
Correct.
That's the main thing. Okay. So it is about 5 minutes to 7. So I want you to tell us if somebody wants to, and guys, let me tell y'all too first, Sarah did say that she will come back. So we will have her back again, and I will try to go through and sneak a notebook with the questions that we haven't answered for next time, so that we can ask them up front. Also, I forgot what else I was going to say. So just tell them how to get in touch with you and a little bit about your class. And I'm going to put the link to the class in the description for the replay. So make sure you come back. If you're interested in that class, come back on the replay and look in the description so that you can find the link. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl. All right. So the best way to get hold of me is either through my website, which is www.sarahbrink.com. Or you can email me, which is sarahbrink888@gmail.com. Those are the best ways. You can also go onto my page on Facebook. You'll find me on Facebook. You can either send me a friend request or you can go onto my page on Facebook. So those are the ways that you can connect with me. I do have, you should find some information on this workshop on my website, but let me just give you a little bit of information on it. And I know Cheryl says she will post a link. It's going to be a 6-month program, and I want to meet with, we're going to do it online. So, we can have a whole lot of people on the call, and it will be 6 90-minute classes. And we will go through everything around mediumship. So we'll talk about what it is. We'll talk about how to connect to your loved ones. We'll talk about what your role is, the different types of mediumship that's out there. We'll have a look at trying to establish a link and get a stronger link with our clairs. We'll go through the whole process of dying. What does energy feel like? What do our guides feel like? We may connect to our guides as well. We will go through gathering really accurate information. How to be a good receiver. we'll talk about development circles and how to work with symbols and the intelligence that actually sits on the other side. So there's a whole load of things that we'll cover in that workshop. And then I will also offer a 3 30-minute one-on-one sessions with individuals who then want to, have a little bit of one-on-one time with me to go through their own personal development. So there'll be plenty of homework. As Cheryl knows, I give a lot of homework.
She gets a lot of homework, and you got to do it. No, she's not a dictator.
But I do give a lot of homework because I do believe that the more homework that you do and the more you practice, the better you get, just like anything, right? And so you'll link up to homework and partners. You'll be doing partner homework as well. So we'll have a Facebook page, and you guys can all meet on Facebook and do your own readings. I may actually do a circle as well, where we can sit in circle and we can practice, so I can watch you guys and what you're doing and how you develop. And this is a program for people that are complete novices through to being intermediate. It's just a program where people really want to come and learn what it's all about, and learn a little bit more about how they themselves can improve their own instrument and connect to their own loved ones instead of coming to somebody like me all the time, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so it's 6 90-minute sessions. They'll all be on Zoom, just like this one. And there'll be 3 30-minute Zoom one-on-one calls as well. And it can be for anybody all over the world. I think we're doing it on Monday evenings, Central Time. And it will be an hour and a half.
Now, will you have will it be recorded with a replay just in case they can't make that particular night?
Correct. It will be recorded, and then it will be posted onto the Facebook page where they can grab it and go through it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, and you will have to look at it because there will be homework.
Yes. Okay. Sarah, I thank you so much for giving your time to us tonight. I love you to pieces. You're beautiful as ever.
Thank you.
And I do look forward to having you back again.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
We'll get that. We'll get a schedule. And everybody who showed up tonight, thank y'all so much for being here. As always, I love you guys, and I look forward to seeing y'all again next time. Have a super duper day. Bye.
Take care.
Okay. So let's end that call.